I'm going to hand over Sheri and Tali. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us, for inviting us to present our paper during this session. We're very grateful to have the opportunity. And thank you for the introductions. So I'll be taking you through the background and methodology of the study, and then Tali will take you through the discussion of the findings. And we just like to make special mention of the broader team that was involved, including Tanika Mancer, who conducted phase 1 of the study as a part of her research paper for honors in psychology. Then also Alessia Landi, who assisted with phase 3 of the study and has developed a full literature review for us for the publication. And then, of course, Luke, who conceived the initial idea and has guided and supported us through the process. The study was initiated in 2019, sorry about that, by Babies Matter, and has been conducted in partnership with Fight Within Sight. So just some background to Babies Matter. This is an organization that was set up to protect children from abuse, particularly babies abused at the hands of their primary caregivers. South Africa's child protection system, as you all know, is heavily overburdened and under-resourced. So Babies Matter provides a supportive link between the role players involved in protecting these children and in the investigation and prosecution of their cases. To date, Babies Matter has received over 184 referrals of babies that have been abandoned or abused. 68% of these babies have died as a result of the injuries that they sustained from deliberate abuse or neglect by a primary caregiver. We know that there are many more of these murders that are not being recorded, let alone investigated and prosecuted, because this is what Luke discovered in his MSc a few years before we started this study. The number is currently estimated at around 28 babies per 100,000 live births in South Africa, which is one of the highest rates of child homicides in the world. And the first 6 days of life are when a child under 5 is at the highest risk of being killed in our country. One of the leading causes for our high rates of neonaticide is unwanted pregnancies that reach full term. And this is sitting at around 64% of all reportedly unplanned pregnancies. This is equivalent to a potentially high number of women at risk of the socioeconomic and health consequences of these pregnancies, and a horrifyingly high number of babies at risk of abandonment, abuse, and neglect. Reducing the number of unwanted births is a critical public health issue, and it contributes to Goal 3 of the Sustainable Development Goals. SDG 3 aims to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being by focusing on the reduction of maternal mortality, under 5 and neonatal mortality, the adolescent birth rate, and increasing access to family planning services. Implementing sexual and reproductive health programs that incorporate family planning education and services is considered to be an effective approach to long-term prevention. But South Africa has many well-developed programs, widespread access to contraceptive services, and exceptionally liberal abortion legislation, which raises the question of why we are then seeing no change, and in fact an increase in our rates of unwanted pregnancy and infanticide. Extensive reviews of the literature focusing on sexual health and family planning programs, which Alessia assisted us with, highlight 2 glaring shortcomings. Firstly, we have tried to standardize our programs too much for widespread use. And secondly, we have not included young people's voices in their design and development. So through this research, we sought to gather local evidence to inform the development of our family planning program for teenagers in South Africa. and to ensure that this evidence reflects the voices of the young people for whom it's intended. To achieve this, elements of qualitative, participatory action, and critical approaches were applied to the design of the study, which was executed in 3 phases. An exploratory phase, which Tanika conducted, including in-depth individual interviews, exploring young people's experiences of sex, relationships, and family planning programs. A participatory phase, which used interactive workshops designed to facilitate active participation in the interpretation of the findings that were gathered, and then to apply them to program design. And finally, an action phase, in which young people were tasked with the development of a family planning program prototype. This was pitched to an audience of peers and professionals in the field in the form of a Dragon's Den competition. So far, 24 young men and women between 16 and 25 years old have participated in one or more of these phases. IPA and participatory approaches to thematic analysis were used to analyze the data, and the resulting themes are representative of young people living in the inner city of Johannesburg. And we've presented them in 3 categories: their experiences, their ideas, and then their solution or program prototype. And Tali will take you through these in more detail.
Thanks, Sheri. Okay, sorry, I'm just going to move my screen around. Okay, so during our research, we looked at young people's experiences of sex and relationships, and what these experiences mean for them. And we also explored this in terms of, as Sheri said before, mitigating and contributing factors towards child abuse. And what we found was that their experiences of sex and relationships are about fulfilling the need for belonging and acceptance, and that's within their peer structure, within their peer groups, as well as outside their family structure. So this speaks to many young girls or young adolescents who come from families where they either have one or both parents who are physically or emotionally absent or unavailable to them, and how they search for that level of belonging and acceptance outside their family space, either with older boys or older men who they attach to in order to feel safe. And what we often see is that these girls go from one relationship to the other, trying to find that sense of security, but it really is about meeting that need for belonging that they miss within their home space. It's about having fun and experimenting, and we talk about this in terms of adolescent developmental milestones and rites of passage, and then experiencing pleasure. So you can change the slide, Sheri. Okay, so we looked at these experiences and their choices, and their choices are affected by things like peer pressure. So again, their experience within their peer group, and they explored elements of if somebody else within their peer group was engaging in sex, then in order to be cool and to be seen, they must do the same. Things like self-esteem and identity. So for them, this was actually explored with one of the group members who so eloquently described how if you are aware of your identity, if you know who you are in the world and you know what you contribute to the world, and you believe that there's something more out there for yourself, that there's a future for yourself, you're far less likely to engage in risk-seeking behavior that might jeopardize that future, that might jeopardize what you might become. Whereas if you don't believe that there's a future, or there aren't resources or support structure accessible to you, you're far more likely to engage in risk-seeking behavior because it doesn't matter. There's no future out there for me anyway, so it doesn't matter if the actions that I take now jeopardize me in the future. We looked at, or they explored sex as a status symbol, where social media portrays sex as glamorized, as being cool, and it sexualizes what being cool means and what fitting in means. And then social norms. And here they explored things like parent engagement. So a lot of our participants came from or come from communities where their parents don't engage with them in talking about sex and in sexual pleasure, where a lot of their parents don't have the vocabulary to talk about it, or they feel that if they talk about engaging in sex, that they'll encourage their children to engage in sex. And what the participants shared is that this is absolutely not the case. That they will engage in sexual acts regardless of whether they've spoken about it or not. But if they have the information and they have the language, then at least they can align that to their identity and they can make the right choices. Another idea here is masculine rites of passage, and this speaks to social norms. So does society say that in order to be a man, you have to have multiple sexual partners? You have to be sleeping with multiple women at the same time? Does that make you more of a man? Does it make you more of a man if you're not using protection? So we have to really look at the types of masculine rites of passage our young boys have and how they can become men without engaging in these types of things. And then being in the moment, so that goes back to experiencing pleasure and that type of risk-seeking behavior that may or may not be attached to their identity and their self-esteem. You can change slides. So what they said about family planning programs that they've experienced is that they're not engaging, that they're very prescriptive, that they're unrelatable, and that they're very limited in their reach and accessibility. So they shared that a lot of the programs that they experience are done at school, in an institutional didactic setting where they're told that they must use protection or they must abstain from having sex. And that's really, you know, the be-all of what their programs are about, that it's a checkbox thing that happens once in their schooling career and then never again. And the problem with that is that it doesn't see them through their developmental life cycle. It doesn't see them as their experiences change, where they can come back and check in with the programs. You can change slides. So what they shared that they wanted, or they felt would be more beneficial, is to increase the frequency and accessibility. So they shared, instead of having the programs once to tick a box, and at school to share these programs within community settings, so that it wasn't just an experience for learners to have on their own at school, but also for learners to experience within their communities, a program that can include their whole community in order to support them within their structure, and that they were more accessible so that they could engage with them over their developmental life cycle, that as their ideas and their thoughts about themselves and their experiences and the world changed, they could continue to access these programs. They spoke about the way these programs are delivered, and they said that they would far prefer if the programs could be delivered by younger facilitators who they could relate to, who could share real life experiences, so that they could really understand these experiences from real people, not just being told by an older facilitator not to have sex. You can change slides. So they wanted the content to be real and supportive, and to be discussing things about like consent, what consent means, what it means to give consent and change your mind at a later stage, and how to navigate themselves around that, about all kinds of topics around using protection or how to engage in sex in a healthy manner, and to really get involved in the nitty-gritty I mentioned earlier, but what they really drove home, that it's, if they have the information, then they can at least practice in a healthy manner, that they're going to practice anyway, but if they had all the information, they would be able to do it in a healthy way. And then one of the most important things was the need for community and family support. And here, their community and family support, they spoke about the need for centers, for spaces where they can experience the connection with mentors, who can really support them, who can help them believe that there is a future for them, that they can be somebody one day. And for me, or for us in the program, this really drove home the full circle, where if they have a safe structure and support system that allows them to believe in themselves, they will then have that identity that will stop them or mitigate against them engaging in risk-seeking behavior. So it really comes full circle in the type of community support that they have. And then other things that we discussed during our last presentation was giving parents the language to engage, and that also speaks to the community support. But a lot of our parents come from the apartheid era, when they didn't talk about sex, they didn't talk about family planning, they didn't have the language around such things. So we really need to engage with our parents as well, and not come in as the expert that this is what must be done, but engage with them and help them develop the language so that they can support their kids. So at the end of the process, one of our groups put together, well, all of our groups put together for the Dragon's Den competition, various family planning programs, and the winning group put together a prototype that they called OMG. And this program was aimed to provide relevant and engaging content on sex, sexuality, sexual health, and relationships to be suitable for teenagers all around the world, all at the comfort of their own smartphones or devices. And this program, or the features on this app, were designed or are designed to access the latest information. It had a one-on-one Q&A with young people and professionals, live chat rooms, a booking portal for services such as counseling or HIV testing and other events in the area, and a menstrual tracker for women. So to conclude, if we can talk to young people and get young people and individuals at risk to think about conception and hold the idea of a baby in mind before they engage in sex, we can mitigate against unplanned and unwanted pregnancies and protect both the mother and the future baby from harm. And then just to add something else that Sheri and I had discussed earlier today, and something else that I've explored recently, was a way of mitigating against intergenerational trauma. So teaching mothers and caring for mothers in a way that allows them to reframe the way they build relationships and the way they relate to a caring relationship before they build a caring relationship with their baby, the most important relationship. And the only way that we can do this is if we support our young people and we support our mothers, so that when they are in a role where they need to support their baby, they have the capacity to. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Karen.
Sorry. Luke, you had said that you wanted to add something in at the end before we go to questions.
No, I chatted with Talia earlier. It was just a comment about the parents and us not coming in as the experts to, in some ways, undermine the parents, because I don't think we do it intentionally, but sometimes we come in with programs where we place ourselves there as the experts and in many ways undermine and exclude the parents. And we still want the parents to be the main zone of development for children.
Okay. So are you ready for our Q&A section? I think people have got a lot to think about. Can I stop recording? And then we can...
Absolutely.